I mean, they generally work overtime anyway.
Well, there is that. Speaking of overtime, is Sophia busy at work?
No, he's just grabbing some water and should be on somewhere.
Okay. Well, it has been quite a week. And
Speak of the devil.
well, welcome, devil. Though, in the grand scheme of things, I think that Sophia would be far more akin to the personification of Hades from Hades Town.
What did I do now?
I'm honestly not worried about Sophia this week. It's Lucio I'm worried about.
Why will we
yeah, I
worry
heard.
about Lucio? He's standing in the small space between the entire darkness of his being and the entire lightness of the world he left behind years before he even became kindred. The daytime hours of the world that he gave up to stalk and seek, avenge and hunt for
I
truth.
didn't give it up. It was taken from me.
Yeah, well,
Potato.
death did make it so that it was definitive. The option of it was taken from you. However, in his profession, in his seeking of justice for those who had no voice, he'd long since given up the day. He long since understood the power of the magic hour, right when the world, even the living world, to no longer hold its eyes open, and the world of the darkness, the world that the kindred inhabit, begins to slowly, or in most cases quickly, die in preparation of the coming light. He understood what shock and awe was, as creeping and stalking through places where others knew better than to tread. He was, after all, at heart, a gumshoe, in the old vein of sneaking through bushes, climbing down fire escapes, going through others' garbages, and being in their places when they are not. But, potato, tomato, same difference. What's a little death between friends? But overall, how is everyone? Do we have any questions?
I'm starting to have second thoughts about the plan you and I came up with. I need you to talk me out of it. Talk me out of my doubts. Are we going through with this? The decision?
Well, let's be perfectly honest. After all of these years, and living inside Lucio's emotions, and understanding a portion of his mind, with the reason sitting before him, if they come to light, we all know at the end of the day, he really is his father's son. That didn't sound too ominous, did it?
I was also referring to the thing that I purchased with XP.
Oh yes, no, that's already bought and paid for, but it's a little too late for buyer's remorse. You've you've committed to it, and yeah, it's there before you. How did Achilles say it? Your future is there. Take it, seize it, and all of that. I forget how exactly he emoted in that particular scene, but that very much is where he is. There is the promise of all that he's left behind there in the sunlight. There is the fear racing through him because his beast is crawling around his head, letting him know that the dark is in fact safe for him. You know where all the predators are. You know that you can survive that. But there, in all of that light, under the eye of heaven, is an unknown. You can brave it, you can risk it, but in the end all be all, can you brave it and risk it long enough to make it to your destination and to not spontaneously combust before you arrive?
I guess we'll have to find out.
Excellent.
Run, Lucio, run!
Alright, let's see here. Looking for my notes. While I stall for time, play me off, boys. Do we have any questions, suggestions, hypotheses, or corners we need to round off? Does everyone remember where we last left our coterie?
That like hold me back?
Sleeping. Sleeping is where we left them.
Well, there's enough time to sleep when you're dead. Oh wait, you guys already are.
Some of us more than others.
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
I mean, I don't know that I would say some of us more than others dead, just some definitely less humane.
Hey, Sophia has a humanity of 7 somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the same as Miriam's.
Hello.
Right?
Very easily. Their idea and definition of what humanity actually is doesn't leave room for all of the wine and roses that others have, the illusions as to the underlying nobility and honor of being human. There is a law to the world that the humans flout, that humankind flouts consistently. It is big eats small, small eats big when they fall. And human work diligently to ensure that that doesn't happen. That the small eats the big, the leaders don't run towards danger, they run from it, they throw bodies at it. Humankind is absolutely, as it stands, horrible.
Yeah, so suck it up, you sissies.
That permutation of thought as to what humanity is and what it means is a horribly debilitating one for a lot of people, myself included. The idea that the best that you could ever be is humane, and at the exact same time using that understanding, that small perception, through that humaneness, you will always also be the absolute worst. But in pursuit of nobility, honor, higher principles, and all of that good stuff, yeah, we are at the inaugural steps of our initial voyage for our new season. Are there any thoughts or concerns? Now, normally I've for the last couple of seasons with our other live plays, I've offered a Google Doc to a Google form to take a small survey, kind of take a temperature reading as to where we are as a play group. I haven't bothered to initiate such with Chicago for several reasons, but most can be summed up with this is the core of it all. Any thoughts, doubts, concerns that I have, we have managed to keep up a strong enough line of communication that I feel that if there were any significant doubts or questions on my part or on your part, that we would have hashed them out over the course of the many weeks that we've shared. And by many weeks, we have been at this roughly nonstop for just over 2 years, March of 2020. And we've had several permutations as to what the makeup of the coterie looks like. We've had several players who've not stayed for the long haul, but their efforts and their energies have helped shape the fabric of our world. So, while I haven't done a temperature check or a measured reading of where we are, for the record, as it were, are there any things or any moments that stand out for the good, for the ill, for any of the states in between? Just moments that you would like us to explore more, or areas that you like us to explore less, or is there something that crossed our minds or your mind that you'd like more of a tip of the hat to, more of a bending towards and diving through?
Not me, but remind me later. I have a very interesting proposal for you.
Oh, I like double deals.
I might also have to be reminded later, because that's like 2.5 years of play that I have to think back through and find like if we missed anything.
Alright, sounds like a plan. Excellent.
I think you flow pretty well as far as covering things and coming back to them later. I mean, obviously, me and you talk a lot, so you know which which moments stick to me and which ones I get like super excited about. So yeah, I'm okay with the way things are.
Thanks. That's always very, very good to hear. So we've got.
I am perfectly fine with it. Perfectly fine with it. It's fun being the confused one, like, what are you talking about? It was also amusing with Lucio a couple weeks ago being like, wait, you don't have Auspex? No, it's not in Clan.
It is not.
It used to be.
The promise of seeing the invisible worlds, the myriad of them circling all around you and dancing through your own, is not the best of ideas. It is really earnestly not. Like, just personally, also it's one of those powers that I really, really enjoy the horror of what that actually means. And it's not just Auspex itself, but also Oblivion, the ability to see the invisible. And the ability to understand that little flicker in the corner of your eye is actually something, to be able to turn towards it and realize that it's always been there. You think back to when you were, a toddling child crawling into bed, something flickered past your gaze, you turned and the room is quiet. Your nightlight is on and everything's well. Or worse, you're one of the imaginative children who believe that chair where there's someone sitting and turn on a light and realize that it's just your clothing, or that there's something scrabbling underneath your bed and it's not your dog, your cat, or your hamster. And you peek your head over the edge of the bed and you stare underneath and you realize that there is in fact something there, and it's not the monster from your favorite book. It is not the monster of something that Stephen King concocted, but it is a doorway into a world you could be lost in forever. Those moments are what I like about Auspex and Oblivion, and seeing the world beyond this one. But there's also how truly horrific that would be. You're on your way to the grocery store. You make a left to take the long way around so you don't have to make the right across the expressway to get there. And then you find yourself driving through a countryside with trees and flora and fauna that don't exist in any place that you've ever been. They don't exist in any place that is actually in existence. Those moments are wonderful. But that's just me. That's my own personal bent. I really, really enjoy those opportunities.
We've had a couple of those moments with Hestia, like where she's trying to have to hold it together because she's seeing something nobody else is. Like the time they went to visit, I think, Critias at that one building, and the guy kept jumping off the ledge. And then they went to the beach, and the lady kept drowning, and she's like having to focus on something other than that.
Yeah.
Ah, that's beautiful.
So, If there are no further questions, let me just gather a few more notes here. Still playing for time. I like Devil's Deals, and I will parse that over the next few moments. But I am definitely leaning with a toss of a coin, because as either heel or babyface, the character is resoundingly effective, and I love both aspects of them, especially being as they're so closely hewn together. As it stands, if there are no further questions, I'd like to thank you. Thank you, each and every one, for spending this time, for investing all of these nights, these mini vacations away from our world into these characters' world, these moments that take me a week or more to come down from, these moments where it doesn't happen too often as of late, but there are moments as explored by these characters that stay with me and have me doubting and questioning and viewing several different hundred varieties of how things could have gone differently. And it's that excitement that you all have built in me in the exploration of these characters that I am immortally indebted to you all. It means a lot. It is, it can't be said enough. This is the foundation of all of my play, all of the places where I've bothered to spend any intellectual or fanciful effort. This is the foundation of it all, and it is all because of your efforts here, the time that we share. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you. And for the record, this is officially season 16 of Soup City Sense. This is our episode 1, A Dead Penny for the Old Guy Kurtz. The quote stands out, the title of this episode, because it is a reference to The Heart of Darkness, which has several different ideas as to what was meant and the themes that are being explored and what it touches on. But most importantly, it is that fine line, that going native, of giving yourself so wholly over to an idea that you eventually become your own greatest, worst enemy. You become the assassin of all of your former self's ideologies. You become that which you have been sent to destroy. You stare too longly into the void, and it doesn't stare back through you. You realize that you are one and the same. And that much has occurred quite often for our coterie of adventurers who have dared the impossible so often as it to become a habit. They have assaulted elders. They have toppled regimes. They have broken generational curses. They have done and acted on and survived moments that would have erased kingdoms, that would have erased immortality itself in most others. And yet they are here. And while Hestia, Miriam, and Sophia are in fact dead for the day, settled into their surprisingly warm and quaint spaces within the shelter proper, Lucio dances on that razor's edge, that being the safe, survivable darkness that has become his existence, or risk the bright light of day. The truth of the matter is, and in no uncertain terms, there is no way that he would be able to make it to his sister's abode. The Biscuiteers by car is roughly, with no traffic, 45 minutes from where he is standing. The trick of it all, he must remain on his feet, to walk that distance, to not be accosted, to not be stopped, to not be sat down or held in questioning. And while Chicago is a city of big shoulders and mindful carelessness, ignoring everybody else's business to pursue your own, lest the devil in the details rears his ugly head, walking from where he is to where he would like to be, to where he believes his sisters, because even though not by blood, Faye has been part of the family for long enough to be considered family. And there is an impossibility, but no one knows that. Lucio does not quite know that, and while his beast is offering counsel, very smart, very wise counsel, drink something, drink someone, drink everyone, so that we might continue persisting. There very much is the fact he knows the light will damn him. One way or the other, it will swallow everything he is, or worse, everything he holds dear. The question is, in his present moment, in his present mindset, with his all too recently experienced mortality and humanity gone, will he say, damn it all, and dare?
In his current mindset, he could not rest not knowing what happened to his sister. He has to know. And so he's gonna dare. In some part of his mind, he knows this is a terrible idea. There's no way this could work. What the hell are you thinking, Lucio? But even while that thought is going on in the back of his mind, he's making his way towards the exit, towards the car. He has to know.
That first step into the sun and all the fear that it drums up is mind-breaking. You can smell your body combusting while you are in it. And while you're not removed, you're not taken away from the idea of the pain, it does not turn you to ash. It does not immediately take everything from you. But the heat on your skin is absolutely unbearable. There aren't any scars erupting. The skin itself doesn't immediately flambe. But as you step into the coolness of the garage, there is a exhalation, a celebration. But there's something important you must do, and you keep walking. You keep moving. You make your way to the car, and you slide inside. Because after all, Silvio is confident and competent enough that he knows that no one would risk the ungodly hell that will fall on them for what could happen to anyone that touched his things. Surprisingly, for someone who drives around undead monsters as a way of life, for someone who bodyguards the unliving monsters of the world, he's surprisingly put together. Sliding into the vehicle, everything's in place. You see the extra spare pair of gloves. You see the backup to the backup key. You take in a moment to inhale his cologne and realize that while it is 100% different than anything that you've worn, and 100% different than anything that Arsenio has worn or showered your living space with, there is some ineffable ideology of maleness in it. It is you, a roaming lion, coming into the den of some other predatory beast. And for a second, a brief, flickering second, all is right with the world. You're behind the wheels of a car. You're seated. You're able to take a load off. And you can just start the car and drive to the Pisketeers.
So at the moment, Lucio is gripping the wheel of the car, and he's wondering if this is real, if he actually made it, or if this is him now on the other side of the veil. So he is looking around, checking himself, seeing if he is actually just a pile of ash.
Death would be easy. And unfortunately, it would be far too easy to simply close your eyes and fade away. And as you grip the steering wheel and those thoughts play around the edges of your understanding, the scent of smoke, the scent of bacon, the scent of burning flesh grows. And not a subtle thing like the slow, wispy wisp of smoke from an incense. No, it's sudden, all-encompassing. And your skin, even obscured, begins to smoke. Your hands on the steering wheel turn 3 shades darker instantaneously. The pain beginning to race from tip to tail within you is enough to drive home your focus on the now. You are very much alive because nothing dead can feel this horrible. Nothing dead can be this burned. The pain is excruciating. And it's increasing. It's as if the sun is acid and you are styrofoam. You're being melted away. There is a form of horror called body horror, where things are twisted out of place and all sorts of monstrosities are done to the human form. That is not what you experience. You experience the horror of being able to watch your skin slowly being melted away. And by slowly, all too quickly for you, you see the first layer up in smoke, and the fat underneath beginning to sizzle and smoke and pop as if you are in fact that pork belly in that cast iron skillet being fried to a nice crunchy crisp.
That voice in the back of Lucio's mind is now screaming at him, "Lucio, what the fuck have you done? How on earth can you be this stupid? There is no way this could work. Look at you now, you're melting away." And as that voice is going on in his head, the rest of his mind is still focused on, I have to know what happened. And he's gonna start the car and pray to God and Cain and whatever other being will listen to him that he makes it there before he burns away.
Would you be so kind as to roll your resolve, composure, DC 3.
It's a goddamn miracle.
There is something that's lost upon death for every human. Roughly the weight of a stack of nickels, 21 grams, the weight of the human soul. There's no reason for it to happen, but it happens upon death. And Lucio has lost that years ago. The idea of being denied heaven is one that has caused many to suddenly develop a full-fledged religion. It is a drive that has changed the fates of hundreds of thousands of individuals throughout the centuries of humanity. That same fervent, blind faith and belief in the unknowable is what drives Lucio, except for his belief and his faith is in finding out what happened to his family, and it is the driving theme of him. He rises above the pain that is racing through him. He grits his fanged maw as he steps on the gas and holds his beast at bay as it literally takes his hand from him. Then his forearm, the smoking scent of cordite, is enough to burn even his nostrils, to burn that scent permanently into his understanding. And he knows that it is him that is cooking. He is a piece of dead meat being cooked alive by the sun's grace. And then the door opens. He steps on the gas, easing out into the street, down the ramp, and out into the world, a smoking heap of soon-to-be obliterated nothingness. And as the white-hot touch of the sun obliterates every ability of his to see, we begin with Sophia. And while we start with Sophia, would everybody else be so kind as to roll a rouse roll? Lucio as well. As a Hakata, understanding that the line of life is an unending one. It is infinitely long and never ends. It doesn't have a beginning. The only thing that mankind and kindred by extension know of that beginning was that there was one for them. And being the proud, vainglorious beings that they are, they attribute their beginning on this infinite line as the beginning of the line. Luckily, the Hakata know otherwise. They teach otherwise. They instruct, groom, and otherwise carve that otherwise onto the very granite of every member of their clans, of their sect. There is a beginning of mankind, but life, existence, is infinite. Some have taken to ascribing that ideology to the human soul. Again, another act of vainglory that ushers and urges folly. The mistakes that happen because people ask the wrong questions, because beings ask the wrong questions, and they act on the right information from those questions answered, even though the question itself was flawed, has led to mountains of irreversible wrong. The one thing that she's confident in is that she has not been wrong. She has achieved her goals, and there's nothing more beautiful than a resurrecting for the evening, knowing that the weight of one's existence is infinitely lighter. The Puttanesca, devoured from within by the Castiglione and Tories, have been dealt a blow that at the very minimum would take generations to dig out from underneath. The Hakata as a whole has been damaged by the loss of that But as far as things go, half a step back for 2 steps forward is a win by any definition and any stretch of that definition. So arising in that state of peace, Sophia's beast doesn't claw at her insides. It whispers as it always does. It longs for the torment and anguish of some entity, some living soul, experiencing the gift of her kiss. But she knows otherwise. Cruelty for cruelty's sake is never a win by any stretch of the definition. Her surroundings are not as posh as usual. And Silvio is not immediately there with her offering of blood for the evening and with several ensembles of hers to choose from which to wear for the evening. He is not there with his quiet, reserved strength, his longing eyes, and those quiet moments when the world isn't actually on fire. And that's troubling.
That is indeed troubling. Sophia will get up and wrap herself in something and, well, shit, we're at the shelter, aren't we? So that's not going to be a thing I can do.
Why? Why?
Because I'm not home where all my stuff is.
But they are good hosts, aren't they? They have an idea as to the laws of comity and hospitality, don't they?
I don't know, do they? But she'll get up and kind of poke around and see if she can find him.
I would think there would at least be like some robes or something hanging in wardrobes and some extra sheets and things, so.
Clothing yourself in the equivalent of, house pants and robe, loungewear, begin making your way through the dark spaces of the shelter. Now here's the thing. While the coterie itself has been called the shelter, often, they share the hounds known as the shelter. Their group, it is impossible to operate in the Chicagoland area and not have heard how dangerous the shelter are. It is impossible to not have been near or around and not heard subtle, small, large-scale rumors and lies as to how monstrously dedicated to the tower the shelter is. They are the bogeymen and monsters that cause other kindred to toe an imaginary line as to their decorum, how they honor their traditions, how they kowtow to the government of the city, how they go out of their way to not expressly and explicitly counteract or countermand the laws of Prince Jackson. And this is what's publicly accessible. These are the day in and day out rumor mongering that's out there in the world, the truth of which is far, far worse. Stepping out of the set aside space where she has died for the day, it becomes immediately, overwhelmingly present just how much power they are sitting on. The ley lines of the world, they intertwine, they meet like all water. It runs together. It runs to the lowest point. It gets through cracks and crevices, creating more cracks and crevices. And that's what the ley lines, the dragon roads and dragon nests of the world are. There are these pathwork of mystical, supernatural energy moving toward the lower point over years and centuries, worming and worrying away the very bedrock of this world as bits and pieces of all of the myriad kingdoms that exist outside of our recollection tear through, seep through, leak through, and occasionally just obliterate the bedrock of the world in which we inhabit. The shelter is a pool of it, where several different ley lines run to their lowest point. They start as small creeks and small rivulets that run together into this massive wellspring of power. And the moment she is out of the space that has been set aside for her, she is bombarded with the full weight of that. She is bombarded with the full weight of a God machine, untethered by a knowing, controlling hand. Being attuned to this location, you could change the world.
Well, we'll start turning that around in circles in the back of my mind, but I don't think she is bold enough, especially in her weakened state and without somebody watching her back, to attempt to attune this place right at this exact moment.
So sweet tooth or not, the unaccounted for candy, the unwatched treasure will be left lying. And she moves down the hallway back toward when she came last night. Well, this morning to be more exact. She follows the cooling temperatures towards the center of powers that exist within this center of power. Just like cell phone signal or Wi-Fi, there are areas where the emanations of all that bombards this place are stronger and weaker. And she's naturally drawn to those places. She's naturally pulled in those directions. And as is always the case when following the unknowing whims of the supernatural, she finds herself at the end of a hall, strangely lit. The air cold enough to have even her dead flesh stand on end, risen in goose flesh. The hairs on the nape of her neck standing at full attention. And the power of the souls here playing along her flesh like a long forgotten lover. And then she smells it. There's a scent to burnt flesh. There's a scent that is unmistakable as anything but. People can purposely lie to themselves and they'll tell you it smells like bacon or it smells like pig or it'll smell like some combination of barbecue somewhere, but the truth of the matter is cordite smells like cordite. The scent of burning flesh is unmistakable. And while the exploration as to how many times and how often Sophia has smelled what burning flesh smells like and how she knows that scent is a tale for another day, what is most apparent is Silvio's back as he stands in the doorway looking on as to whatever is inside the room in front of him. And as she eases closer, she can hear him in Italian. I'm sorry for not being there, but I hoped you would understand.
And what is it he's looking at?
In a room best and easiest reminiscent of an office from some black and white Humphrey Bogart film, laying on the couch therein is a charred corpse. The clothes sticking to it and burned mostly into the flesh. The space clearly male. The corpse could be neither. But the dark gray coat that is now nothing but tatters and ashy remnants of its former derelict glory belonged to Lucio.
What has happened here?
The car's ruined. I went to get a few things, and I thought that someone was dumb enough to be trying to steal it. And this guy was what's left of him was behind the wheel as it was rolling to a stop outside the parking garage.
Is it him?
Yeah, it's him. I'm not sure how he survived getting from wherever he got from to get into the car and get it moving, but there he is.
She will slide past Silvio into the room to get a better look, see if if he's just badly hurt or if there's nothing left in the shell.
What's Lucio's humanity?
7.
Oh, yeah. He is unfortunately awake. Well, alive. And unfortunate because there's nothing like the hell that is keeping him immobile. The hell, the pain that has even his beast playing hide and seek with being cognizant and aware. The anger that it inspires is the stuff of nightmares.
Of course, having this conversation with Silvio in Italian, because why would we not? She will turn around and look at him and say, "Speak plainly."
Well, the car is ruined. We won't be able to use it for a while. I got a guy who's looking into getting it back to where it's supposed to be. But for now, we're on foot, or I gotta go find other options for transportation.
It is certainly easy enough to buy something. It may not be as outfitted, but it is better than walking or calling for the Ubers. And what of him?
I don't know. He was going. I may have got there just a little too late, but you see the wreck and ruin there.
I do. I just don't know if he is enough of a asset or a liability to decide his fate.
It's a good question. And speaking of good questions, Miriam, while last night quantified as a win, last night was a victory on several fronts. The sadness and pity you had and have for the dread pirate, Nash, is no insurmountable thing. You know that those around you, your coterie of the moment, your coterie of however long they stay in your cipher, however long they stay in your circle, however long you continue needing them to act as a beard to keep the other hounds, the sheriff himself, from breathing down on your neck, they will be that for you, your shield against the rest of the world. Here's the thing. The presence in you, the other mind that's there, that has not left, is in mourning. The touch of him is gone. Everywhere that he's touched is a cold, icy trail along your spiritual self. The absence of him, instead of setting you free, lifting you up, giving power to your flight, seems to ground you and weigh you down. So resurrecting for the evening and your beast crawling around the inside, demanding satiation, should be a reprieve from that stage of grief, that depression. But it's not. It's as if the drives of the beast to survive are compounding with the drives and need to at least say goodbye. Something that you in your heart of hearts knows is not possible. And there you are in that red dress, sauntering out onto the stage. Keep looking towards the door and realize that he will not make it. He will not open the door. He will not stand there in the wings, giving you the power of flight. His presence will not be there to shield you and add strength, speed, and grace to your movements. His absence causes you to stand there in the spotlight, unable to even raise your head.
Well, interesting. So I suppose the first thing that she would get up and do is go to her personal method of solace, which is, creation, art. She's been presumably drawing the lady these past several weeks, months. This time, her gaze will shift and she will start sketching Nash.
A jawline made from the movies of old. 5 o'clock shadow permanently there. His hair windswept, even when a length such as that was no longer stylish. And while he managed to stay abreast of the most contemporarily present fashion sensibilities, there was still the air to clothing that draped, that hung and outlined the swell of his well-toned shoulders and his corded, wiry strength that was meant to be scurrying across rigging, his very hard-lived time at sea causing his hands to look as if they had been carved from stone. The slight tan to his skin held even in his paleness after all of these years. And the scent Why is it now that he and any semblance no longer exists that you can pinpoint that scent? It's a windy salt scent, as if all of the wildlife of the sea is there to be seen or witnessed. You can imagine a swordfish breaking the waves, or a dolphin swimming alongside the ship because you salted the water with your cast off and the sharks are feeding, causing the dolphins to circle. And while the old wives' tales were that the dolphins were signs of a good trip, the truth of the matter is they were hunting the sharks. But all of that aside, as you sketch one line and then the next, and they blend together, and you begin adding shading, you stare into those eyes that you've managed to put enough effort and work into that you expect them to turn towards you at a moment's notice. Yet, even in this two-dimensional space, in this two-dimensional world, there is something missing. And while you have all of the physical details of him accurate, and while you know what was the underpinnings of the cologne that he wore, there's something missing. Would you be so kind as to roll your resolve and composure, and your DC is 2? Because realizing what is missing, but you can't put words to it, knowing that there's something absent, it is hard as an artist to not find fault with yourself. It is hard as a person that creates to not see it through, to not have that skill that you've depended on be reliably there. And as you stare down into his face, not the face that you last saw, angry and grief-stricken and stunned by your ability to bring forth a moment that none should be aware of, it is very hard to not summon your inner Chad and put a fist through stone wall, or to shatter and destroy the room and space around you in an exhibition of pique, to vent that emotion bubbling up just beneath the surface, and you say no. You choke it back. You swallow it like your gorge. And while it tastes just as deliciously sweet as all of that bile, you manage to keep from venting it on the world around you. And that absence sits there, a lump of coal in your stocking. But you're alive, you're resurrected, which means the night is upon you. There's a world out there to be lived, and you will have a reprieve. The tower won't hunt you because of your agreement with Sophia. The tower won't drive you from your space because of your agreement with Sophia. And as these things do, one thing leads to the next. The tower won't hunt you because of Sophia. However, if the feelings you had last night, or more accurately this morning, are to gauge anything by, anyone even remotely aware as to the lodestone would have felt what took place. Anyone even remotely understanding of the lodestone would have felt what took place, especially someone to whom ownership of the lodestone was enough that they might be willing to wage war.
Amazing.
So between your beast, your hunger and your need to satiate yourself, and the understanding that there may be very few nights before hell comes asking for its pound of flesh. What is it that Miriam might be doing?
Well, after she's calmed herself with sketching, she will go get herself cleaned up. Presumably, she is still covered in Lucio's blood.
Very much.
Gotta take care of that. And then once she is done, first she will go check in Lucio's bedroom to make sure he's okay. If there's any bandages that need changed, the whole rigmarole.
So she makes her way through the shelter. She makes her way through the building, heading towards the space set aside for Lucio. Standing in the doorway is the huge form of Sylvia. There's always the aphorism tossed out, a mountain of muscle. And in Silvio's case, it very much is accurate. Even from behind, it is clear that he's made of sterner stuff than he should be. And while he doesn't turn, he doesn't look over his shoulder, and he's speaking to someone inside Lucio's room. As a doctor, or more accurately, a medical student, there's a easily missed by most scent. Dead flesh has a scent. Burning flesh has a scent. And even as a student of medicine, Miriam is aware of that scent. There's no reason for that scent to be coming, wafting out of the space ahead of Sylvia. But it is. There's no reason for it to smell as if you have a burn victim freshly rescued from a burning building. But there is that scent. It is on the air. It is still circulating. It is still gently wafting and caressing your nostrils, as only the most accurate things can.
All right, Miriam will kind of dodge and weed past Silvio and go check on Lucio. And for fuck's sake, what did you do this time?
As those words tumble from her lips, there is no way to accurately describe this scene, so you must bear with me as I do so. Sophia is standing draped classically and all too beautifully in a bed sheet, as if it was a Grecian robe, her pale flesh almost glowing in the very low light. Laying on the couch is the mummified, scarred and burned ruin of a human. You know it has to be Lucio. This is the space that he was marked as his and where he stated he would remain and be okay. Yet the corpse of gray ash burned flesh with eyes dark enough that they speak of ill intent toward every living thing. There could only be one being that those might belong to. And the fact that the eyes, there aren't any ruptured blood vessels, so there aren't any reasons there for the eyes to be so alive, lit from within by some fire. And yet it makes the ruin of the flesh all the worse. You are sure that it's painful, or would be excruciatingly painful, if Lucio so much as took in an accidental breath of air. Luckily, he's already dead.
For fuck's sake. She will go to, presumably he has an ensuite bathroom, and gather up some towels and sort through and see if there's any first aid type stuff in there. And this is going to be rough. You're not going to like me.
No. There's no way through any semblance of healing or mending that it would not be painful. There's no way forward save to embrace the suck. Losing things is never an easy thing. And what is ahead of you is, well, you know what's needed to remove all of that charred wreck and ruin. And in preparation of removing the wreck and ruin, in light of all of the damage done, resurrecting for the evening is always difficult for kindred, because despite their still all too human minds aware that the day exists, they never experience it. There's no dream. There's no floating along. There's no subconscious mind making sense of what time has passed. There's no semblance of time that passed. There is a switch thrown. Just a flick. It's night, and then it's night again. And you know that there's an intervening space, but for the kindred, Hestia, there's seconds at best. Literally a blink of an eye, and you are once more resurrecting. It has been several nights since you've resurrected in a space that was your own. It has been several nights since the peace and solemnity of your things has been there to welcome you back to this world of never-ending night. Days which have seemed like weeks, months even. And your plushies are there at the edge of the bed. Your duvet is there as usual at the edge of the bed, neatly folded. Your soft chemise caressing your skin, the scent of your soap, and your nightlights, your things. It has been forever since you've had the opportunity to peacefully resurrect to your things. And almost a celebration, your beast kicks you in the rear, demanding sustenance, demanding satiation, demanding, don't be a lazy, get up, go on with your day, we need the food, we need sustenance, come now woman, let's go.
Waking up, she's grabbing at her head because there's that pounding in her head. This is the hungriest she's woken up in a while. She's at 3 because she was at 2 last night. And the beast is not being very nice. Putting her feet on the floor and scrubbing at her face. She's kind of like checking herself as to, okay, what's going on tonight? What do we got to do tonight? Got to get rid of the stone. She's like going automatically. Her head starts gearing up and her brain starts computating things, but at the same time, in the back of her head, her beast is raging at her, and she's like fighting with it to shut up and stands to her feet. Doesn't bother to get completely dressed just yet. Just kind of throws on slippers and a wrap over her pajamas, which I will not tell you what's on them because you would laugh. That will reveal that at another moment. But so she's kind of scuffing in her slippers as she's heading down the hallway towards the sound of voices and wanting to also check on Lucio herself.
There is a blessing, a small kindness that has come due the lessening of Hester's grip on her humanity. It grants her a core of balance that she didn't realize was there. Now, when she thinks about it, she starts fretting over the loss of the fellowship that comes from a good worshipful moment. There's a loss of the touch of the holy. That energy spectrum, that wavelength of it being repulsive to her as she is now. But that loosening of that grip on humanity grants an understanding that it will work out. You may not be here to see it, and that is what it is, but you not being here means you don't have to deal with the mourning of those who have lost you. It means that you would be at peace. It means that here in the now, what you choose to worry over, what you choose to count as valuable is in fact all that's actually valuable. And it is clear that even with that lessening of her grip on her humanity, she holds her coterie and those they care about with value. Because as she's heading down the hall, just taking in the feeling of being home, because that's what the shelter means to her. And as her foot falls, scuffle on the ground, the advanced age of her actual existence being visible to those who know those small telltale signs. Because while her body has not aged, Hestia has lived in isolation and having shut herself off from the width of the world at large. She has interacted electronically. She's interacted via memorandum and through messages and through mail for decades. Then she opened herself back up because of Simone, because of the people here, that they were able to give a better semblance of their lives, because of their connection with their angel investor, because of everything that went into them being chosen for this, because that's what it was. Their care and attention to the world around them being used as prod to get them to act as protectors and owners of this hallowed ground. And while her circle of things that she cares about has shrunken some, has grown smaller, she is still caring and cares for her coterie. So as Silvio's large back looms in the doorway leading to Lucio's room, questions began arising. And while she hasn't consciously recognized or cataloged or counted why is Silvio standing in Lucio's doorway, because to be perfectly honest, when immediately seeing him in the shadow gloom of the hallway, she thought he was Arsenio. But as she closes, the neck is a little bit wider. The deltoids are a little more developed. There's a less of a softer middle. He is about an inch, maybe a little bit less, taller than Arsenio. But there's a similarity of clear genetic similarities there. There's the dark hair, the dark eyes, the eyebrows that always look as if they've already been done by a professional. There's the maleness that pervades like an invisible shield around him. There are the hands that are suited to violence. And there's a darkness in the eyes that even in their brightest moments never truly goes away.
She kind of stops herself short because normally when she's walking into Lucio's room, there's nobody in the way. So she almost runs into Silvio at butt level and backs up and looks up. Morning, I think. Trying to look around him.
Sophia is standing in Lucio's room, draped as if she's Grecian royalty. Her robes, which are actually bedding, draped across her tastefully, hanging, and showing that she is in fact fully far more attractive than anyone has given her credit for and taken notice of. Her clothing, always stylish and chic, is reserved, but in this moment her hair is lightly tousled as if she actually slept, her pale skin almost glowing in the dim light of Lucio's space. There is something otherworldly about her. And then you hear Miriam. This is gonna hurt. You look towards Lucio's bathroom, and there she is with bits of this and that, and gauze and water, and all sorts of implements that she's arranging and staging for use. And then there's the corpse on Lucio's couch. There's Lucio's eyes staring out. The same eyes that are far too reminiscent of Arsenio's. The same eyes that are far too reminiscent of Ignacio and Arsenio and Wojcik and Mama Cass. And if one is being honest, Hugo, though his eyes are lighter in color, though that same malevolence, that same fiery enmity is still there. The corpse that looks as if it is the remnant of a marshmallow left too long in a campfire. The corpse which has the tattered remains of Lucio's dark gray jacket. The corpse that is sitting as still as stone, much like the corpse that it is.
That is leaving us with two very distinct and different thoughts. One is, oh shit. And the other one is like, oh cool. Something to dissect and take apart. And kind of brow comes up. Anybody want to explain why that happened? And she's like kind of pointing in the direction of Lucio.
I couldn't tell you, but I could use some food. He could definitely use some food.
I think the question, is it going to be human food or is it going to be what we normally eat? Because obviously if he got crispy crittered by the sun, he's probably not human anymore.
Yeah, bring some of both just in case.
He did ruin my car, apparently. I'm not sure what more he could owe me at this point, but it is annoying.
Wait, your car? Didn't we all find that car?
He went for a drive in the vehicle. I'll go find something. Your people's downstairs are real nice. I like that Donnell kid. And Silvio turns to leave the kindred to be kindred. As he moves away, Lucio, there was a moment where victory and the present were perfectly in sync. There was a before and after situation that occurred. And the moment that you stopped moving, all of that paid for grace dissipated. The wheels have been turning since your eyes opened to this night. and the sound of them was as if someone decided to pry open a very old, very well-soaked book, tearing page from sticky page, cracking it open, and the leather creaking and screaming in reservations. That's what you heard when you opened your eyes, resurrecting for the evening. The pain that rocketed through you because of that simple act left you as you are, with the world happening around you.
So how much of all that was Lucio actually conscious for?
Everything that has been said, he has heard. Everything that has been discussed, he has heard. But the truth, and the very painful fact, is movement of any kind, he is tearing charred flesh. And not charred superficially, not the first 3-4 layers of skin. He is burned through the very muscle structure of his being. The fullness of the sun smacked him all at once. Those 5 precious rounds of movement that came due the moment he stopped.
Considering how unbearably painful it is to move right now, Lucio is just going to stay still.
But that's going to be painful too, sorry.
Why can we eat?
You know, I might have something that'll help with that. Let me go to my greenhouse and I will be right back. So, Hess is going to go to the greenhouse and grab a couple fronds off a well-established aloe plant and some calendula and bring it back.
And Miriam sets about as carefully as she can, trying to peel the charred clothing away from the flesh.
Call me crazy, but maybe if we put some really, really cold water in the bathtub and just put them in there, everything will peel itself away.
You can feel Lucio giving you a look of extreme disapproval. All that moves are his eyes, nothing else, though.
I mean, what could it hurt? And then we can empty all the water out and put blood in the bathtub. And he can absorb it through his skin like a straw.
I'm not sure it would work that way.
Sophia is going to leave the room.
What is Sophia's hunger?
1.
Oh, she's perfectly fine as the idea of blood comes up. Unlike Hestia, who is very close to being that half step too much for her beast to not rip free from her. She is in a worse state than Miriam, so the idea of blood, especially enough to fill a bathtub, is a tantalizing idea. It's like a hungry person being presented with a menu for their favorite restaurant. It starts the juices flowing, the mouth watering, the fangs slipping into place. As the idea of drinking her weight in blood doesn't seem like a bad idea. Miriam is at hunger 2, correct? 3. So the same situation. As the idea of a bathtub of blood begins dancing on the tip of her mental tongue, the idea of consuming enough to put herself into a food coma is not so far removed from something that should be pursued. And while Hestia's beast facilitates and dances from one voice to the next, trying to find which tone and tenor might best reach through the space between them, Miriam's voice is silkened, slightly Spanish inflected. Miriam's beast takes on the semblance of a brash personality that she's heard speak. It is their corpulence jiggling as they move to and fro across the stage and talked out into the audience, seemingly talking to each and every member gathered. The music in the background was Donna Summers, and everyone was dressed in their evening finery. She remembered what Mama Wallenday was like, just how big and brash that personality was, and how they were able to bring Lilith's words into the modern time, into today's reality. They were able to translate the scriptures of what had been said into the reality of today. And while again, not a believer, not one of the faithful, not one of the fanatically loyal members of the Bahari, it is hard, difficult, by every stretch of the imagination, to not get swept up in the cause of people that actively, actually care for you. And it's even worse when every other example of that sort of entity, of that sort of person, does not care about anything, including themselves. But this was a fellowship of like-minded individuals willing to give their all and that much more in support of each and every one of their members. And Miriam had an opportunity to dance in that light. Miriam had an opportunity to soak in that care. Miriam had an opportunity to see the magic of belief and fellowship changing the world for those individuals on a nightly basis. And so Mama Walde crawls around her mind. You know that there is a congregation not more than a quarter mile from where we are. And you know that they will give all that they have for the opportunity to spend a few moments with you. That they will give everything that they could possibly imagine that has value for the fellowship of you. There's no reason not take them up on that offer. And hell, bring a doggy bag back for this one here.
Marion would take a moment to breathe and settle herself. Lucio would probably see her biting her lower lip, whether out of concentration or frustration. Hard to say. But she will keep working because that's what she does.
If you wish to bathe him in blood, though it will probably not help overly, you know you are in a very well-stocked larder. If you'll all excuse me.
Hestia kind of shouts after Sophia, I'm sorry that we're boring you!
There's a tossed out statement that if your absence doesn't bother him, your presence doesn't matter. It is the value of one's worth in their associates. The tossed out bon mot very much goes to the point that Sophia's presence has weight. That she is wanted despite all of the other social issues that plague this group of kindred. This humanistically soft group of kindred. Those who have lived as long as they have and had not had to deal with the harsh realities or truth of the unending world. The world that most people purposefully try to thwart, not to defeat. No one works towards defeating death for anyone else save themselves. No one works towards bettering the world for future generations because they won't be here to see it. But understanding that existence is never ending, that it is in fact immortally eternal, provides a vantage point to Sophia that cannot easily be understood. A small relative evil today, and relative being the operative word, for a better tomorrow. It's not an easy road to tread. It is not an easy burden to carry. And some nights, that burden seems more than others. This is one of those nights because there is the very real brush of her own beast's fang against her insides. The energy expended came from somewhere. The energy expended, even pumped through and bolstered by all of the stolen energy, came from somewhere. And it's only as she is easing away into the darkness that the truth of that begins to rear its head. Because yes, she's attuned to the unseen. Yes, she is aware of all of the energies bombarding the world around her. And yes, she can, with some concentration, trace and follow it back to its source and perhaps dip her toe into it. But as she steps away, would you be so kind as to roll your stamina plus oblivion? Your DC is 3. as the shadows begin crawling over her feet as she steps out of Lucio's room. She initially doesn't think anything of it, save the shadows have weight. She can feel the darkness caressing her, pulling at her softly, tousling her hair, moving in for an embrace. And as she feels its touch across her skin, her brow rises into her hairline. Implacably, as always, she continues on her path, moving forward into all of that darkness, into all of that energy. It's only as her undead lungs begin to struggle for air that she's not breathing, that she realizes something may be amiss. Summoning her internal strength, summoning her drive to survive whatever the world or any of its lesser, darker twins throws at her, she forces herself to remain still, to remain here. She is in a shelter, in the hospital behind it, in the space and haven of the shelter. And she starts listing the things that she knows to be true and factual in this world. And as she does and focuses us in on the now, the shadows lose their hold on her. The shadows become just shadows. The energy wafting around her is just white noise that exists out there to not be interacted with. She realizes that the energy that she expended opened a space within her that leaves her exposed, open like a wound for whomever exists in the worlds on the other side of the shroud.
Well, we'll need to fix that, I guess. She will just go back to her borrowed room and get dressed. It's like too quiet.
That's exactly what the spirits that are wafting and dancing around her, flickering at just the edge of her gaze, immediately think. By closing herself off and focusing on the here and now, and keeping herself here, she has barred the path, as it were. She knows that for passing fleeting attempts, that is more than enough. However, a direct, decided attempt would be another matter entirely. It's always a smack in the face when those things no longer privy to this world decide that your existence is up for grabs, that your being is viable. And that is what the expenditure of energy utilizing the stone does. because her initial sacrifice was the stuff of her existence. Her initial sacrifice, her initial investment was the vitae of her being. And just like when you allow a puppy to lick your face, it wants more.
I'm sure she would be willing to oblige it if she knew where it was and could get her hands on it. Not that she couldn't find it if she wanted to, but... Some decorum is necessary. That's who she is. So I guess she will get dressed and come back to find Silvio again.
Silvio's nothing if not charming when he needs to be. And it is clear that to cover up the corpse that was Lucio, he made himself considerably more charming. So him returning with a platter of food, as well as what can best be described as the ambrosia of existence, the blood of others, isn't exactly all of that startling, though the how, for those that it matters to, would be. And as Silvio's returning, and as Sophia is concocting plans and moving things around mentally, when Silvio stepped away, leaving Hestia and Miriam in such close proximity to a bottomless cup of vitae. A little crunchy, but a little fiber with one's diet doesn't hurt. What is it that they might do? Because while fresh is always best, Lucio really does have vitae in his veins beneath that cracked and charred skin.
Hestia at first just kind of stares at him and then looks at Miriam. And my question is, does she still kind of have the wall up from last night, or has that since fallen?
No, that's fallen.
Okay, so she's not completely emotionally unattached, but looking at him, I wonder if he tastes like pork cracklings. Nope, can't do that. I'm
Here.
Did she say that out loud?
Yeah.
Miriam will pause and turn around and give Hestia a what the fuck look. And then go back to trying to separate clothing from Lucio.
You act like you've never had these kind of weird ass intrusive thoughts before. Can't help it. I'm too smart sometimes, and my brain goes in these weird leaps of logic, but...
No, not those ones. I just had the ones that are like, hey, you should kill yourself. That would be awesome.
We don't listen to those ones, okay? But anyway, I hate to do it, because I usually have a rule against it, but... Look, as long as whoever you're talking to consents, you can drink from the people downstairs, but they have to consent to it. And I don't want to traumatize them, so we'll figure it out, but there are enough of them that if you coax them with something they might want, outside of drugs, I don't allow them to drink or do drugs and crap like that, but if there's other things they might want, it's workable.
As soon as the words tumble out of her mouth, Hester realized how far the trip from then to now has been. There was a moment, little more than a year ago. Hungry and ravenous, she found herself in the stall with two of the members of the shelter who had broken the rules of the shelter. They had brought drugs. They had engaged in inebriation of all sorts of wrong. And she found them, and she was going to punish them verbally for their indiscretion. And her beast reached through her mouth, and she took from them. She coerced, she cajoled, and she tossed the money over her shoulder as she left, draining them. She spent months agonizing over the wrong that she'd done. And come to think of it, she hadn't seen them in a while. Those two.
And the guilt hits. What I said sticks, but I can't hunt here. It would be wrong for me to do it. I have a weird thing against it, and I gotta go hunt because I'm really, really hungry, and I don't want to bite Lucy.
But his potato tastes so good. Do you remember the last time you took a sip? It was literally the difference between you never being here and you being here now. His vitae is the stuff of life. As you were drowning in forever, disappearing from all that you might be, it was the taste of Lucio on your lips that brought you back. It was the taste of Lucio that made the difference between you and Dizzy.
She seems like she's gonna try to walk out, but her feet are very much stuck to the ground where she is, and she keeps looking back at him on the couch. But he needs me here, right? But then what happens if I go out and I don't come back? This is...
You'll come back.
No, see, because there's things going on. And just kind of like her hands are slowly creeping towards.
If she gets too close, Miriam will like snap the tweezers at her.
And as the second click of the tweezers hit, like someone checking to make sure that the tongs work, as everyone must when you pick up a pair of tongs, Silvio and Sophia are at the door. Silvio is carrying food, but stinks to all high heaven. It is absolutely deliciously cooked. It's a veritable gourmet meal. However, in your present state where only blood might be what satiates and calms and soothes and provides all that's needed, the food smells like burning insects. However, in the midst of all of that stench, that well-preserved and presented stench, there is heaven. And while the scent of freshly obtained blood is not enough to send Miriam or Hestia over the edge, The sound of Lucio's fangs slapping into place sounds like twigs breaking. Fresh breaks of cold, dead twigs. Audibly from across the room. Sophia even hears it standing in the door, and it is clear that she is not the only one who's heard it, because Silvio frowns. And while he's holding it initially in two hands, he switches so that his center palm of his left hand is holding the tray, and his right unbuttons his suit coat for the first time this evening. Lucio, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll 1/3 your humanity and your unspent willpower, DC 3.
Do I include hunger in these rolls?
Normally, no. You all never saw Lucio move so quickly. He's always been the slower, steady, competent, consistent sprinter. There's the gift of the undead speed, meaning that he's able to push his muscles far farther than the living and the breathing, which grants a certain amount of implacable speed. He's a downhill runner, though not the fastest between nearly anyone he's associated with. But how quickly his cracking dead skin snaps into place and he stands, arms akimbo, twitching towards claw-like visages. It is clear that if not for the grace of some unseen god, Silvio or Sophia, or the combination of the two, would be sat upon. Anything between Lucio and that scent of blood would be ruined. Not simply because of the stain and scorch marks that would be left all over them as he fought through them, but in that mindless nanosecond, it is clear that his beast is all there is to him. Yet he pulls himself up short, stopping at standing. And while everyone else sees it as an exact and complete controlled act of will, Lucio knows that the movement of standing, of going from stock still, painfully present, to standing and having moved that quickly, tore and ruptured things inside that are not supposed to be torn or ruptured or burned to the point where they're crispy and crunchy. And that pain of all of those snapping ligaments and broken muscles crumbling like dust, or worse yet, overly dry cereal at the bottom of a bag, is enough to drive reason back into him as quickly and instantaneously as it fled. The scent of the blood is not lessened, but the pain of movement has granted him a small bit of clarity between him and his beast.
Miriam just looks up at him and sighs. And then she will point back to the couch.
I think he needs to eat more than we do.
Someone would like to bring that over.
If Lucio is actually capable of forming words right now, the only things coming out of his mouth are, "I need blood now."
You need to lay down now.
Sophia will grab Silvio's arm and go, it's not safe here. They can sort this themselves. They are big kindred.
Crouching in a way lets you know that he is definitely one for reverse squat lunges in his workout regimen. And there's only one way a man of that size and that bulk is able to maintain the balance necessary to one-handedly sit the tray on the ground by stepping backwards without moving his front leg. His left knee extends out as he bends and slips the tray onto the ground. And as he rises, he's rising back on his right foot, establishing roughly 7.5 feet in that small maneuver between the tray and where he began to where he ends. It also provides, if anything were to become untoward, him to have the opportunity to fire from several different angles into the central mass of whatever might be heading in his direction. Most wouldn't recognize that that was the whole point of the one-handed maneuver. Most would not recognize that's the purpose of the very strange reverse lunge, but all of that to keep maximum distance and allow the opportunity for defense if needed. All the while hanging so that he is a fraction of a step just in front of Sophia as they move back and out of the room. Sure thing.
Where is our old car?
It's being delivered. Unfortunately, the last incident with the car required a little bit more work than it should have. These people have no respect for vehicles.
Tell me about it.
I would suggest perhaps renting one, but we will probably end up buying it anyway, so perhaps we buy one.
You know, that's funny. I was thinking much the same myself. I have a guy who's bringing models for us to take a look at.
Well, then we have something to do.
So, tall and handsome? DQ? You said models.
Yeah, the models of the vehicle, you know, the make, the model, that sort of thing.
Fine, whatever. Alright. You can use the office if you need to. You know where that is, right?
Yeah, sure. I properly cased it out. Though Donnell is meeting folks there, so it's probably better if we go out of the tunnel entrance that I found. Down through the morgue.
Yeah, that's fine, I guess. I'll probably be down there in a little bit after I sort this whole thing out. I still have to go hunting myself, so...
While they're having that conversation, Miriam is gently pushing Lucio back down, and then she will go get the platter of blood. They're a bendy straw.
Lucio just reaches out for one of the cups on the platter.
Blood is what the body needs and is all that soothes. The touch of it to his lips feels as if it is the first time that he has drunken water. It's the first time where his endless thirst has been satiated. It's the first time where there's been any bit of kindness delivered to him. The blood is the life. And it is all that matters. And it is 28 after the hour. Let's be back here at 38 after.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Hello.
Hello.
What's up?
Also back.
Welcome. So, not that we are properly returned. Sophia and Silvio heading downstairs through the haven towards the moor, towards the office, towards this space that had been for quite a few weeks on end, the central meeting place for the coterie. In that place of old death that was made new by the actions of the coterie on a far more consistent basis than one would expect. And Astia, torn between outright leaving following Sophia and Silvio and the very real pull that Lucio's vitae has, and while he's distracted with the consumption of life, which is the blood that Silvio managed to come back with, all sorts of questions abound in their head. And Miriam, knowing that the aphorism, cruel to be kind, is definitely true in this regard. Because while dead and the pain receptors not quite being what they once were, the message is not carried as far, as quickly. Being kindred, there is still pain. And in Lucio's present condition, as a survivor of immolation, existence is pain. With her humanity at 7, with the ghost plaguing her thoughts, with the haunting of her soul not quite over, nor her trust, there's the very real understanding that in his present state, even a freshly created child could have their way with him. And after everything that he has experienced, after everything that she has witnessed them experience, all of the battlefields that they have drugged themselves across, how much is too much? Where does the cruelness of pragmatism force her or anyone else's hand to put an end to the madness that has become his night-to-night existence? Because as he licks and slurps and pulls every draught of blood from that cup, the crinkling and cracking is more than superficial. And as the foundations of the nerves, the sinews, the muscles, the fatty membranes beneath all of that ruined flesh, breaking and cracking and knitting and sundering themselves all over again, the sound of the liquid, viscous blood trailing over his lips, past his tongue and down into his gullet. It's like zero-gauge sandpaper. You can hear it, you can smell it, and you can see that even while the blood gives life, there is the pain, frustration of movement, of existence, tearing at him every second. And as far as Lucio, the blood is the life. That is the truth. And for every satiating drop that moves past his lips, this is not the enjoyment of a gourmet. This is not the enjoyment of someone who's gourmandizing their satiation. This is sheer, reckless, pleasurable abandon. You're not even gauging the vitality of the blood therein. You're not gauging the scent of it, the oily scent of it, the everyday misuse of a lost soul having been coerced or forced into providing this blood. Because even pained, even in his present state, his investigator's mind is running rampant. Where did Silvio get such blood so quickly? Because it is not kindred and it is not animal, which leaves only human. And where could he have gotten human blood so quickly and so much of it? So, in reverse alphabetical order, starting with Sophia, what are we doing? How are they going to end this moment that has come to the head with the understanding that there are forces in the world that are leaking across the divide and seeking to have their way with her?
She will tell Lucio that they need to get somewhere safe, and it's not here.
Silvio, you mean?
Yes, Silvio. Somebody with an EO at the end there. Maybe it's Spaghetti-O, I don't know.
Sure thing, mistress. Is there a reason we're gonna leave your associates?
As you know, there is a cost for things. Right now, I'm attempting to, I guess, metaphorically put this one on the credit card for the time being.
Sure thing. We can make sure that we get out of here and we get safe.
That and them getting soft, it almost got you killed, so let us go somewhere else.
No, just a place. We can go see that Zal that you were having a conversation with and wrap that bit of business, considering... Is there anybody else that's on your list here in the city?
I think we have come to do what we were asked to do. Seems without the opposition of the Castigliones and Tories that Zal will be able to secure this on her own.
You really think so? Didn't the night nurse back there say something about her sire and her sire's associate getting involved?
They're not a kata.
Okay.
I mean, the simple precept is we have kicked down the door and made the hole. If she cannot fill it, that is on her, not me. I gain nothing either way. In my previous conversation with her, she actually used the word that I could be her intern in this matter. And I find that a bit insulting.
So why not take the throne? Let her keep the crown, as they say, and you be the power that is. Only so many times you're gonna get away with doing the impossible. Only so many times you're gonna get away with being somebody else's do boy.
Do you want that headache?
You got enough scapegoats to make sure that no one gets to you.
Perhaps. I do not necessarily believe that they will honor the traditions and repay the boons.
Well, you know what they say. If you got a hot credit card, you don't use it to pay bills. You use it to live very well. And if they're not going to pay the interest on the, you might as well run that right on up.
I suppose there is that, but I don't know if I've got enough backing to start a war, especially when Zal is what the Paters wish.
Well, I don't want to overstep, mistress, but whatever you wish is what we're going to do. But aren't you tired of running stem to stern, pillar to post? And in time you carve out a little bit for yourself.
I'm thinking globally, or whatever the beatniks say.
Sure thing.
I will give it some thought, but for now we need to get to somewhere that is safe and looking into getting some sort of transportation. I do not think we will fare well on the subways.
Yeah, even though it's only 3 stops, it's 3 stops too much, because here, purportedly, there's a clique of sewerettes that run that.
Even better then, I do not want to incur debt just so I can move 3 blocks.
Hey, speaking of your 3 blocks, a small incremental distance covered. The weight of everything that has occurred, all the truths not given credence because they haven't been spoken, and all the lies turned into fact because that's all that has been repeated. There is a weight hanging over the coterie. There's a weight hanging over Heshia's head in this moment. All of the many faces of the coterie members fly past her mind's eye. All of the former coterie members, all of the current coterie members who are out there in the world. At the end all, be all, death seems to be the only outcome for consistently staying on this road. And this road has been putting out one fire after the next. Running to catch up instead of moving to get ahead of. Running to catch up and put out the fire. And looking at Lucio, the effects of the fire will eat. The fire will out. And it clearly has. And that is a step too far. There is a question there. Why didn't he die? How did he not cease to be? That much fire damage for a kindred half his age would have been a guaranteed death sentence. Not an almost. There wouldn't have been enough left to bury in a teacup. And yet here he stands, sitting now, thanks to Miriam, slurping down all of that delicious smelling blood. So Hester, what is it that dances on your tongue?
She's kind of like weighing her options, and If she really wanted to, she could probably get past Miriam. No problem. But then there's that guilt that started when she was thinking about how far she's fallen. The fact that he should have not survived. So, while her fangs are almost like itching at her gums, I really need to go hunt, or it's not going to go well for me staying here. Because at some point I'm going to lose the fight with my beast. And you are not going to be enough to stop me from taking what I want. No offense. I'm small, but I'm strong, as you've seen multiple times. And I'm way faster than you. So, I think it's best I don't ask where Silvio got that blood from, and I go find my own. I'll be back as soon as I can.
Miriam will nod.
There's a saying that every American and most people around the world have heard or they know of. You can never go home again. You can never return to the past. You can never return to the foundational aspects of where you became you. And as Lucio chokes down all of that deliciously obtained free blood, it's a hint of spice to it. Something else that he can't exactly put his finger on, but his heart feels like it wants to beat. There's a energy in his fingertips, and there's a sudden dryness to his mouth. Listening to Hesha as she heads out to go hunting, he struck with the last time one of the Cody members left the Haven in an emotional state. And Clyde divested their family, that family, of their future. And he and Simone nearly lost their lives, their unlives, their existence, their immortality to those police officers. The last time a Cody member went hunting in a state of disregard for continued existence, they ended up cremating bodies. They ended up almost losing the rest of forever. And as he sits with the blood on his tongue and it dripping down his throat, he realizes that they are not who they once were. And he realizes that they still have no understanding or grasp as to what happened to his family. Hell, it's been nearly a month since he's even seen a text from Elijah, which doesn't say much, considering the way that his phone operates. But he has been disconnected in his efforts to protect those that matter to him. He's been single-minded and jumping over dollars to pick up dimes. His mind gathering all of the details, constructing an image or building a castle in the sky. It's perfectly fine, but it's the fact that he's been trying to move into those castles that is suddenly troubling him. What is he willing to do, honestly, for those that matter to him? What is he willing to sacrifice? What is he willing to accomplish?
Is this a rhetorical question, or is he actually being asked this right now?
He's thinking. He's being asked by the combination of his subconscious mind, his beast, and the person he once was.
Thinking that to himself, he realizes that he hasn't really done what he should have to protect the people he loves, and now he's paying for it. And so are they.
The bill always comes due. At the end all be all, there's a cost for doing business. And that realization sits there on his tongue, sits there in the forefront of his mind as Miriam deburs another bit of skin too dead to be reanimated by the vitae that is suddenly beginning to surge within him. And speaking of that deburring of dead flesh and that bit of unmendable debris that was formerly part of Lucio's being, out of the corner of her eyes, Miriam sees a small flash of blue. It's different than the ever-present image of a twirling, whirling dervish of red, but no less disconcerting. She tries not to turn towards it. She tries not to pay it any mind, because much like that twirling, whirling dervish of red, she knows that it's not actually there. Unless, of course, she's far more insane than she gives herself credit for. What is there? What is weighing on her in this moment is there is a dragon, unfettered, blazing a path through the world to achieve their vengeance. And not just any dragon. A dragon who's claimed the title of Boavad and had it respected by others. And Lucio is a charred mess of dead flesh. Silvio and Sophia are headed out into the night, with Hestia echoing them and leaving the sanctuary and sanctity of this space. And out there in the dark, somewhere, is a greater dragon acting or preparing to act in an incontrovertible way that cannot be impeded nor halted, because no one knows what he is capable of. So what is Miriam doing, thinking, saying in this moment as the flesh comes away like bits of tree bark?
So, this is night 2 of the 3 days, or night 3?
Night 2.
Okay. Perfect. I was losing track. So, she's, right now, her big focus is trying to get Lucio back in some sort of working order. Did Silvio bring 1 cup or 2?
1.
Okay. Perfect. Not a big deal. Okay. A little bit longer to go, but do you think you can do any sort of healing to yourself?
I can try.
Not just yet. We need to get all of the clothing off at least. But being able to move at least without snapping tendons would be good. And she will continue to work, and she will occasionally glance over in the corner at the new image, shake her head, and go back to work.
It's only as you two are alone in this space, busily working on Lucio, busy trying to gain some movement, some life, or semblance thereof back into what he is. And as he's busily working at some internal problem with the limb, as you see his eyes, his brow furrow every few seconds, his thoughts bombard or don't line up the way they should, or different paths of logic intersect or intercede. You hear in the corner, just over your shoulder, well, goddamn, if all you want to do is get him naked, all you have to do is dress up like his sister. You know them motherfuckers is freaky as shit. Hell, I'm sure that if you look around, you might find some of his sister's clothing in here. Who knows what he dresses up like with nobody paying attention. Now the voice and the inflection you've heard before. In fact, you didn't think you'd ever hear it again, considering all of your associates and friends who deal with specters and spooks and can seem to see and interact with them are either gone or a charred version of themselves. Yet it seems as if you are the only one to hear the dulcet tones of Blue as he manifests just out of view. And as Blue regales and begins a non-stop stream of crude, purposefully alarming assumptions and ideals, we draw to a close with the myriad many issues of the coterie in the offing and to be addressed later. Thank you all for a lovely session, and we shall see you all next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Not all.